All right, welcome back to another episode. This time we're finally going to get that engine and transaxle sorted out, because not only is the bell housing here, but the clutch and flywheel have just shown up. I'm really excited to get this thing together and in the chassis. So I went with a fancy lightened flywheel. So it's only like 12 pounds. So nice. Let's mock it up. I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it's like Christmas, right? It's funny, you know, I have a problem spending like 200 bucks on a pair of shoes for myself, but this, no problem. Spend money on this all day long. Sexy. And realistically, I think the Pantera bolts in from the inside, so I'll have to blow that bell housing off, take this one off again, and then actually bolt it in from the inside. But can't help myself. Just gotta look at it. Sweet. Yes. Okay, so that fits. So there's another concern here I have, and this was about the bolt pattern that was on the Pantera transaxle versus this bolt pattern. So we can see here that there's two bolts on the bottom, and there's, I don't know if you can see that or not, there's one up top. This one's got the two bolts on the bottom, but there's nothing up top. So I'm thinking that out of the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts that hold the bell housing to the actual transmission, I don't have the one up top, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, missing the 7th. So I'm thinking, I'm hoping those bolts will line up just fine, and I'll just be missing one on the top. The other thing is the clutch slave cylinder. So on this bell housing, there's a mount for it, and I'll have to, you know, obviously get a new slave cylinder, but I have to change this mount and put it on this bell housing somewhere. So I'll probably end up welding a mount to that thing in the same spot as this or something and getting a new slave on there. Anyway, so next, let's blow this thing apart and put that bell housing on here. Well, success. This actually works out. It is the same depth as the original bell housing. The new one is the same depth, so it's the same thickness, so that's awesome. There is a problem with those two bolt holes. Those two don't, or this one doesn't line up to these two on the back. I think this is like, they call it a second gen bell housing, but it fits the first one. Like I said, 2, 4, 6 out of the 7 bolts fit, so you know, it's gonna be good enough. I think I need to get better hardware though. The hardware that was provided doesn't work with the thickness of the flange on the transmission. So let's get some hardware and put it on the engine. Woohoo! Okay, this is where I gotta check myself, because I know better. The tranny's still covered in dirt. I really want to throw this thing together just to look at it. But I know once I put it on the engine, it's gonna be a while before I take it apart. So let's just take the time, clean it up now, make it look beautiful, because it's going against a brand new engine, right? I might as well just make this thing look good right now, right? That's what I keep telling myself. It's like when you're building a model kit and you finish painting it and you want to put it together right now, and you're trying to not put your fingerprints all over the paint as you're gluing it together. This is me right now. Just clean it. So you may remember from the first video when I tried to move this transmission, I was struggling to get it in the cradle of the C5 rear end. There's no way I'm going to be able to pick it up and put it on the bench. So I've enlisted the help of my wife, the professional bodybuilder. Let's see if she can help me get it up. Boom-ch. All right, so what end do you want? What end is going to be easier for you to grab?
Probably this one.
All right, grab the shaft. There's so many innuendos with grabbing trains. I'm sorry, what? Thank you, babe. Woo! Well, that's not going to work. Let's take this thing to the coin wash. Well, I am soaked head to toe, but at least that looks 1,000 times better. I can get all the little dirt off with a toothbrush later, that's fine. Actually, it makes me think I should probably order new seals and everything while I'm here anyway, right? Of course I should. Don't cheap out on a set of seals. Let's get it back to the shop. Doesn't it look so much better? I'm glad I took it to the coin wash, but of course I was super soaked after all that. Anyway, so a couple things about mounting this bell housing. Although this is a great solution, it's not 100% perfect. So, and I found out why we have 2 bolts up here and when I just need the 1. So on the Panteras all have this 7-bolt pattern, and there's an extra one up top here. But the bell housing on the description says it's for a Pantera and a GT40. In the GT40 configuration, the bell housing stays the same, but the whole transaxle flips upside down. But on the bottom of this bell housing, you'll notice there's 2 bolts right there. So those would have to mount on the top side, and that's why there's those 2 bolt holes right there. So that's why that's there. This doesn't matter. Like I said, I've got 6 bolts holding this thing together. I'm not worried about the 7th. But there are a couple things I need to address here. So the clutch linkage actually hits the flange on the bell housing. You see that? So this thing needs to swing around. My other option there is to not use this. I do have what I'm missing is the throw-out bearing here for the front. I need to order that in. But what I could do is actually get rid of that whole assembly and just put a hydraulic throw-out bearing in there. And because I need to get a new slave cylinder anyway. And the other thing is that, you know how this was mounted to the bell housing before? I don't have the bolts or the locations to actually mount this to the bell housing. That's no problem to locate and weld a flange to it. But by the time I'm into a new one of these and a throw-out bearing, I can probably be into the same price as one of those hydraulic throw-out bearings, in which case I just need to drill a hole through here for the line and then sleeve it on, and then I'm done. So let me figure that out. And it would make this a lot cleaner, right? Not that I'm worried about that so much. But these things apparently also don't push enough volume. So the transmission, according to the forums, I don't know this personally, people are complaining that between the slave cylinder and the master cylinder, this doesn't push enough thrust to actually disengage the clutch fully, and there's a drag on some of the gears and the synchros. So not sure if I should just change that out completely, or there's probably, a modern update for all this stuff, I'm sure. But I kind of like the idea of running a hydraulic throw-out bearing, and then I don't have to worry about this. I can get rid of everything and just run that. So let me do some price analysis and see which way to go there. But doesn't that look so much better? I think it's time to, I'm going to blow these off as well. I'll detail these further when I change the seals out and blow these end caps off and paint those up nicey nice as well. So let's keep going. So looking forward to mounting that to the engine. I think that's going to be the next step. All right, so after looking up on the forums about the hydraulic throw-out bearing, that is a no-go. And it makes sense, because if I put one in here, and if anything goes wrong with it, I got to pull the transaxle out of the car and modify that unit. But this one, it's always going to be external. So, and then I can just, if anything happens to this one, I just pull it out, put another one in, and then off I go again. So let's get going on modifying this and building the bracket to put that on there. I think that makes a lot more sense in hindsight. All right, so I need to transfer these 2 ears on this old bell housing to the new bell housing, which doesn't have anything. So an old English biker dude once upon a time was making gaskets, showed me how to do this just with a hammer and some Bristol cardboard paper, construction paper, whatever you want to call this stuff. Just put it on there, hammer it out, and then I can take, this stud here is a perfect location, so that's the location there. So I can just transfer that pattern right over to it, make some ears, and weld it to the bell housing. All right, so now that it's all tacked in place, I'll just clean off the powder coated edges and take it up, make it look all fancy pants. And then probably not going to deal with this bracket right away. It's just on there. It's located. It'll be good enough. I'm not going to rebuild the bracket until I get the new slave cylinder in there. Yeah, so heck with that. Let's take that over and take her up. So it's clean. The slave cylinder is mounted. There's nothing more I can do to it. So I guess that means it's time to mount it. Let's get that thing mounted to the back of the Godzilla. Can you give me a hand, Dan?
Yes, sir.
Awesome, thank you, sir. Let's heave-ho this thing over there. Whew, that is awesome. So happy that is together. Look at that. So you can see the oil pan really does hang down quite a bit, but I think we have the room in there. Sick. It's a shame I might not be able to use those headers, but we'll find out when I get it in there. So that's the next problem. So now that this is mounted, how am I going to lift this thing up high enough to get it into the frame? This is so awesome. All right, so we've got a lot to look at here and figure out now what's going on. It's just sitting on a crossbar in the front, and it's literally sitting on the back of the trans there. So yeah, clearly those exhaust manifolds aren't going to clear the frame here, which is fine. We built some cool logs to come out and go across the suspension and out the bottom. Yeah, this one is sitting right on top of it. Figure those out. Engine mounts are actually in a really good spot. It's fine. I just build a bracket down to here. The oil pan isn't hanging below the frame there, so that's actually probably the height. The harmonic is not hanging out past this cross member, so you know it's still gonna have to build some sort of bump out in the passenger compartment for the engine. But god damn, that thing is huge. Think of where the seats are gonna be. Your head's gonna be at the same height as the engine in here. Fantastic. So what I'm going to look for now is where exactly the drive shaft placement needs to be. You can sort of see that it's the center of the flange is right there right now. So it's just offset a little bit, which could be all right. I could trim these flanges down if we're going to put the drive shaft there. the transmission's just squeaked through the 2x4 there on the bottom. Oh, there, it's resting. Couldn't figure out what was resting on. The bell housing is actually hitting on the top of the frame on this side, so it must be resting on the other side as well. Yeah, bell housing's resting on the frame down there. So I can probably bump it up a half inch pretty easily here. And the starter's got lots of room, no problem. All right, this is exciting. Let me look at it for a couple hours, come up with a plan, and then we'll figure out something to do. We'll figure out the mounts next. All right, today is Easter, and I can think of no other better way to celebrate Easter than mounting the motor. So I started moving the engine out and forward to modify the frame, and I realized, oh, stop, I'm not including you. So let's back up here a little bit. I moved the engine forward, and just because I have a little bit of interference here, and that's this little notch right here. I gotta cut that out because these two little bolts there, you can see those are not, there's one there and there's one just in front of it that are just ever so close to the frame here. So let's remove that, and then I can center the transmission in the hole here. And then I want to cut the tops of these flanges off. I left them long, wasn't actually sure what was going on, thought maybe I could use them as mounts for the shifter rod or something. Anyway, those got to come off, so let's chop these things off. And then, so I'm trying to get the engine as low as possible. I guess if I raise the engine up, those things wouldn't hit and that would be fine, but I'm trying to keep the center of mass as low as possible. And even still, the bottom of the oil pan is already, well, still about ½ inch off the bottom of the frame, so that'll fit fine there. I'm just trying to buy as much room so that won't hopefully interfere with the hood, but it probably will regardless. And I'll probably end up changing that intake manifold. Probably. So let's modify that, move this thing back, put it down there, center it, angle it, and then I can start thinking about what the mounts have got to look like. That sounds like a great Easter. The heck with chocolate. Let's mount engines. Oh, and crank some tunes. Okay, so I chopped off the tops of these and I modified that. This is the engine spacer plate, or the trainee spacer plate I've got at the back. I'm only using like a ½ inch plate there. That's all I really need, just trying to keep it down as low as possible. Let's see if we can slide this thing back in. Somehow I miscalculated all of that. That slot that I made on the side, I gotta move it ahead an inch. What the hell was I thinking? Well, that's the problem, I wasn't thinking. Damn it. All right, looks like I got to pull the motor out again. So I think that's it. You can see that notch I made in there just to clear the bolts. That's clearance. I got lots of room here now for the drive shaft, and I pushed the transaxle back a little bit so the drive shafts aren't 100% in line. This one's just looks to be about maybe 1.5 inches offset rearwards, so that gives me a little bit more room in the front. I'm not sure if it's 100% centered in the back yet. Still need to measure left and right, but I'm thinking pretty good there. Unfortunately, the backup switch took a couple of dents banging off the frame there. I tried to remove it, but it's also stripped in the hole, so there's a couple other things going on with that I need to fix. It's not one thing, it's another. And I've got a nice angle on the engine, just ever so slightly tilted back, and this is exactly centered from left to right. So I think I'm in a pretty good spot there. I'd like to lower this down even more, but the oil pan is only, like I said, maybe about ½ inch to 3/4 inch above the lowest part of the frame there. So I think I'm just gonna leave that. I think that's a good spot, and the engine mounts will probably settle once I put some weight on them as well. So I think now I can start thinking about what these engine mounts are going to look like there. Yeah, cool. That'll be fun. I wish I could use the original pedestal mounts. Don't even know if I have them lying around here still. Well, these are the mounts here. That would be cool to use that pedestal, but I don't want to use this mount because I've got the other mounts that are on the top of the or on the Godzilla motor. There's the other one there. These things are hard as bricks anyway. I guess I'll just make new pedestals. It'd be cool to recycle things like that, but I can't use them. So I think the engine's pretty much centered now. So the next step, I guess, is going to be making the plates that are going to fit inside these mounts. And then, unfortunately, these are not at the same spot on the left and right side of the motor. This one's a little bit closer to this side, and the engine mount on that side is a little bit more tucked into the block. Don't know why, maybe it has more to do with the AC compressor on the other side. Either way, so while this plate here will look the same, the mount, or the pedestal, will actually look different. And the thing I need to consider here is that this one drops down on the top, sort of a locator, but this one here comes in from this side. So I'm gonna have to slot this hole, so when I drop it straight down, this one won't get hung up. It'll just sit in the bottom of the slot that's been created for it. And this one here will hold it down as well. So let's make some plates up, 2 plates up with some holes, and we'll probably have to take this one to the mill and slot this. So, and then we'll get them mounted, and then we'll figure out what the pedestal is going to look like. Well, crud, I happen to be out of 3/8 plate. I really wanted to make this part of the engine mount 3/8 plate and then make the pedestals. It's a holiday today. The metal place is closed. I can't get metal, so I'm scrounging around through the pile of offcuts that I have, and all I have is 1/2-inch plate. I could go 1/4, but I think that's too thin. So let's go 1/2-inch plate. So I've chopped these sections up. Let's go knock some holes in it, bolt it up, and then I can tack these things together and then weld the bejesus out of them on the angles that I need. Okay, so all the brackets have been made and chamfered and nicely modified. Let's see if it's all gonna fit now. So, unfortunately, I didn't have any metric hardware, so I just took some 1/2-inch nuts and chased them out with a 12 by 1.75 tap for now. Just because it's a holiday doesn't mean I'm not working on stuff. Hopefully that clears by dropping straight off, otherwise I'll have to modify that slot a little bit. Excuse me. It's getting to be late in the afternoon now. All right, so the mounts are welded. That is in there. So you start to see what that needs to look like, right? I just need to build a pedestal down to here. But building a square pedestal is kind of boring. I'd rather do something maybe fun and tapered on this side. There is a problem with the one on the other side though, and that is the shifter linkage. The Pantera uses a solid shifter linkage which comes from here. On the old car, or on the old frame, it would come down to here somewhere, then there'd be a rod end, and it would travel through the rod end and then go all the way up to the shifter and the gated shifter up there. So this engine mount is going to be a problem. So, but the shifter can go, it's going to have to go around this. I need this to be the engine mount. The only other thing is maybe I can offset this engine mount and bring it to the inside of this tube, like come up here and then go over, and that way the shifter linkage will have a chance to go through here, but that's going to be a problem then. So maybe it comes out high, really close, somewhere through there, rod end gets attached over here somewhere and then shoots up. So by putting the tube here, I think it'll buy me the room for the shifter linkage, but it is going to eat into the gas tank area, which is fine because I mean, I can always put a notch out for the gas tank and figure that out when I get there. Plus I was not only going to run the gas tank on this side, I was thinking of running a gas tank on that side as well and having some sort of transfer pump. I got to look into that more. Although now that I'm here, I guess I'll start looking into that more. Okay, so let's get these engine mounts done. The poly bushings came in for the rear. These are just body mounts from, I don't know, some Chevy that I thought could work. Rather than going with the rear mount here, I'm gonna make some side plates and actually mount them into the tubes down there. So like basically mount that, you know, into the frame with a bolt down below, have a plate come off these 3 bolts, go around that, and then top it with that. And that's basically it. That's all I'm thinking for the rear. I think that'll be fine. And I give it lots of support sideways. So that's done. So now that I got those, let's start thinking about what these things need to look like. I think rather than an angle straight down to there, because the other side looks a little, these things are asymmetrical. They're not exactly in the same spot on either side of the engine. So this one's closer, the other one's farther away. That's why I have to cut into the gas tank a little bit. But I think I'm just gonna come up 90 degrees on this plate and then straight down onto that. It's easy. And then I'll take a look at gusseting it further from that point. But that'll give us the basics to support the engine and to get it in there so I can take this crane out of the way. So I'm tired of tripping on it over here. All right, so that's them. That's the rough in there right now. And the other side looks like, I gotta go around everything here. The other side looks like this. This one I was able to finish off the bench and then just finish welding here. But remember, I need that space for the shifter linkage to go through here. And then once I've established what the shifter linkage looks like, then I can maybe build a gusset between the motor mount plate and the support or something. Let's see what that looks like. Or even, you know, vertical, dropping something down from there. Either way, I think that's super rock solid. And like I said, I'll have to build some sort of, because I want to put the gas tanks here. So maybe that just gets a notch out for the gas tanks or whatever that's going to look like yet. I have no idea. But that's almost time. I think I can pull these plates out now and let the weight of the chain just hang there. It should balance. Yeah, let's try it. All right, the engine is now supported in the frame. What's up? I'm worried about it falling in. All right, once I get the engine out, I'll finish welding all of those. But all right, so now I can move on to the rear mounts. Let's figure out what that's gonna look like and start making some plates. So for the transaxle mount, this is actually gonna be pretty straightforward. So I didn't think it's worth showing you everything, but I can definitely explain to you what I did here. So I took one of the washers that came out of the polyurethane kit and I welded a 1/2 inch nut on the back side of it. And I just used a step drill to hog that out, and then that's the base plate. And I'll just weld that around there, and when I get the frame flipped over, I'll weld it on all the sides, and then that base will sit there. And then this is where I get to make the bracket from these 3 bolts that come down that'll go around that. It'll just sit on there perfectly, right? Piece of cake. And then once that's in, I got, oh wait, I got this thing. So there's a little collar that goes through there, then the top one that acts as a sandwich, and then you got another one, and then you got a bolt. Pretty straightforward stuff. So no sense including you along on that one, but so the first step to this bracket is probably going to be chasing the holes out. Because these things have been full of mud and cake, and I think they're M10. So let's chase these things out. And while I do that, reading the comments on the last video, which was just straightening the body out, right? And it's no big deal, but let me just explain to you what I'm doing here. So the comment was talking about not enough work, just me talking mostly, right? So, but talking to me is figuring this thing out. So whether I'm discussing it in my head by myself or you guys are along for the ride, it's got to get done. So I might as well just capture the whole thought process on how it's all going to get done. Welding bars and brackets into the car. Do you guys really want to see that? It's just a bracket. You know what I mean? Like in that case, it's just the bracing, right? No big deal. In this case, you know, I am taking into consideration some of the comments you guys made. So let's go through my process for actually making these transmission brackets, right? So the first stage, and I'm still talking about it, the first stage is me chasing out the holes to confirm that it is 10 by 125. So now that I got those, let's cut some metal. Let's cut some metal. I need a piece of plate about 3.5 inches wide by 5 inches long, and I'll weld this flat piece onto it. But first, let's make this piece. So let's cut out a piece of metal, and then we'll take it to the next step. All right, hopefully that's on a good angle. You can see that. So to make my first hole in this plate, where am I going to put it? Basically, I'm just going to eyeball the center of that plate, make sure it's vertical, put it at the height I want, take my marker, look directly over the top of the hole. Sorry, I got that in my mouth. Look directly over the top of the hole, put a line where that's going to be. And same thing, I could just move it sideways, look at the center of the hole, and you know, approximate where that's going to be. So that's my first hole, no problem. Right? So let's go drill that out, and then we'll drill the next hole. But I can't mark the second hole till I have the first hole bolted into the block, and I'll show you why in a minute. All right, so now for the second part. We've got one hole drilled, so we can bolt that into the block, right? Or bolt that into the case, no problem. But how do we get the second hole? So I've been doing this trick for years, and this is just an M10 bolt that I happen to have. I got a whole drawer full of different sizes, but you can see what I've done here is I've stuck it in the drill. I've cut off the bolt, stuck it in the drill, put a point on the grinder, and then I've got two flat spots on either side, one there and one there, so I can use an adjustable to turn it in a little bit deeper, right? So what I'm going to do is screw this into the second hole. And I just need to make a mark in it. So it just needs to be, make a mark in the plate, excuse me. So then I'll put the plate on. Move that out of the way for now. Make sure it's centered again where I want it. It's in a good spot. Yep. So all I'm going to do is just take the hammer and just put a mark in it. Fit it. And hopefully it left enough of an impression on the backside that I can center punch it. Yeah, so I don't know if you can see that little mark there or not, but it just left a little itty bitty little mark there. So I'll center punch that and drill the same size, 25 64ths there in there. And then I'll do the same thing for that one. Okay, so drilled the second hole. So let's relocate that punch center, that bolt, put it in the third one I need. There we go. So unfortunately I don't have any shorter M10 hardware, so I'm just sort of using stuff that I have on the shelf right now. I'll have to get some shorter bolts. Oh yeah, perfect alignment, nice. So now, same thing, where's the hammer? We'll just hit that spot down there. Yes. And presto, I got another small little mark right there. So I'll go center punch that, drill a hole, and I'll be right back. All right, so the third hole is done. Let's throw this back in here. Take the hole center finder out. Yeah, I gotta go down and get some better hardware, but these will do for now. With any luck, everything is 100% lined up. Oh yeah, nice. All right. those are in. I still have to make the one for the other side, but you get the gist. It's the same thing, right? Just in reverse. So now I need to make a plate that's this wide, which is 3.5, and I need to cover the edge of that. So let's go 3 inch. So let's make a plate that is 3.5 by 3, and then we'll find the center. This is 1.25 inches. Yeah, 1.25 inches. Then we'll use a hole saw and cut that out. Okay, so the plates are made. I made 2, one for that side, let's put that over there, and one for this side. These will all be sandblasted. This is, you know, the only metal I got right now, so it's just rusty, but I'll blast these up when it's all said and done. That's pretty much her. There's a little bit of wiggle room. Hole saws are kind of, you know, wobbly at best, but, you know, that amount of play, I'm not too worried about. And that'll just get sandwiched in there. And then I'll probably end up building, I'll probably radius these corners off. This is all in rough, right? I'll chamfer everything and radius it all out, and I'll probably build some 45-degree brackets on the side here just to support it a little bit better. So let me ticky-tack that thing across there, hold it in place, make sure that bolt is in the center. Actually, I should probably drop that in there just to confirm that location. It is centered, yeah. Good enough. All right, let's put a couple ticky-tacks on there. So that's the bracket done. I think I'm just going to put the other one together quickly, and then we'll weld them all up and then install. Should probably blast it first, get rid of that rust in there before I weld it up. All right, so the brackets have been painted. Let's get it installed. In hindsight, I can see that I've already buggered this one up here a little bit. See how it's a little bit closer to that flange, that hole's a little bit closer to that flange, and it should be able to put that flange on the outside of that. So I don't think I can use the flat washer in this case, but let's get it on. And that is it. Both mounts are in. So it's pretty good. This engine is now sitting completely on its own. I just put that because I'm paranoid for no reason. I have to finish welding this thing. It's just ticky-tacked in place right now. But I'll worry about that when the next time the engine comes out. So I've ordered some exhaust flanges, some laser cut exhaust flanges, so I can start building that. But I won't even start the exhaust because until this main hoop is in, there's going to be a connector bar from here that goes to the main hoop. So there's no sense welding the exhaust here because this bar is probably going to get in the way. I'll have to build it out and come around that pipe there somehow, or that tube when the time comes. I can mount the AC compressor in there now. And shifter linkage is still something I need to think about, but I have a plan for that, so I'm not too worried about how that's going to go. I should, you know what I'm going to do next, I think, while the trainee's in here, or get these strut rods up and mounted. So I'll need to determine it's exactly parallel and then figure out where this mount is going to be. What I'll probably do is just copy the geometry off the original aluminum cradle and get that in the same spot. And then I think the next step as well, because now these things are located, the drive shafts, I can bring both drive shafts up to the drive shaft place, the one from the original ZF and the one from the Corvette, and say, how do I join these things together? I might end up just making a flange that will bolt to this, to like a European style, I don't know, CV joint style, so it'll bolt into it and then change the one end and use the other end from the Corvette. I have no idea how that's gonna go yet, but let's bring it out to a drive shaft plate and see what they say. I should take a guess. How expensive do you think those drive shafts are gonna be? That's the question. Okay, so the next part of this is going to be making this bracket to hold this strut that holds this wheel in place, the rear wheels in place. So on the original aluminum cradle, I have it on the bench over there, we'll check that out in a minute. It pretty much goes straight, so it's perpendicular to the run of the car, right? And that would bring the bracket way over there. And as you know, I kind of want to put a suspension unit through here because I'm not running the original fiberglass leaf underneath the Corvette. So if I sort of look down there, you can see how this strut rod could interfere with the lower part of the shock I want to use in the coilover or airbag, TBD. But if I bring it over here, it's well out of the way. And if I keep it at the same height as the factory one, so it was like 3.5 inches from basically this bolt center line up. So if I keep it at 3.5 inches off that, I won't get any of the bump steer that I could get with the travel, right? Just keep it in the factory location. But what I can do is bring it this way and get it well out of the way and actually use this to support that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So 3.5 inches from the bolt center line up, bring it over, and that widens the space as well, right? So technically that should be a stronger point. And if I did bring it perpendicular, I would have to build some sort of, you know, support bar from this 2x4 down to that 2x4. So I can save myself in some material and just bringing it over there as well. So let's get set up and build some brackets for that. All right, all the pieces are cut for this bracket. It's a pretty straightforward bracket, but man, I could not figure out a good way of doing this. So let's take a look at the solution that I got. Let's see what's going on. My brain's just not working this morning for some reason. There's probably too many beers on the weekend. Or you know what, it's probably not enough sleep actually is what it was. So this bracket sort of just picks up the angle of the one behind it here, and that's gonna get welded in. Just gotta make sure it's perpendicular to the tubes above and below, and that'll get welded in. Then I've got a nice point to anchor the bracket that's gonna hold the strut rod in place. And that will just bolt through, and I'll probably angle it and just cut this bar into the vertical one, you know what I mean? And then get that in there. So let's time lapse this stuff together. Oh yeah, I forgot, this thing here is indexed. There's 2 flat spots on either side of this strut rod, so I'll have to weld maybe a couple of flat bars on either side of this just to lock it in place so when you're tightening the nut it doesn't spin. All right, so I was contemplating welding this bracket in there right now, but I hate the misalignment of the notches on this thing. So if I just back up here a little bit, but I think what I'm going to do is undo this, take that plate over to the bench and just weld some vertical bars and hold that thing in place. And that way, I just feel better about the things being, or the locks being vertical. It's me. Whatever, let's just do it. All right, so now that I got those, what do you want to call them, locators, side stops, whatever you want to call them in, modified the plate bracket. I got to weld up that cut there, had to angle it to get it in a better spot on the back bar here. Let's put it in. So that's our mark. It's actually 4 1/4 from the center line here up to this pivot point was 4 1/4 from the original aluminum cradle. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Requires a crap ton of welding now, and I'll probably end up having to, well, when the suspension comes apart again, I'll finish all the final welds out. It's gonna be a little bit of final welding, but that's it for that. And can't see that much on that side. anyway, let's ticky-tack this in a little bit more, put the one on the other side. Kind of a funny moment. I should not be operating heavy machinery today. In fact, I think I'm just gonna go to bed now. I tacked that bracket in place to look up and realize I didn't even align this rotor to the run of the chassis. It was like 15 degrees off there. So I'm like, damn it. I had to undo that tack, align the rotor, and then weld that back in place. So that's done. I think I'm gonna stop this today. But either way, I think this video is done now too, because the engine and transmission are mounted. I have to do some final welding on that engine mount down there. No big deal. There's lots to do here. Still got the exhaust to do, gas tanks to do, shifter linkage to do, but that's not even in my spectrum of things to do right now. In fact, today the package just came in for the stainless cut exhaust flanges for that. So lots of stuff to do there yet. But now the next stage, now that this video is done, is moving the body. So that body's ready to transport. A spot is opened up here, so I can now move the body to here and actually hook it up to the ceiling on my chain hoists and crank that thing up. And then pull the motor out of the chassis again and move this whole chassis and table over to underneath the Pantera basically, and hope to God all my measurements that I've done on this thing actually coincide with the body. I mean, even if they don't, I'm not gonna tell you, and I'm just gonna modify it to suit anyway, right? Totally. So I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. Please give it a thumbs up, all that stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. I'm probably going to start moving that body tomorrow, but you're not going to see it for a couple of weeks. So see you later.